Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dad's on Life, your weekly episodic show on parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Keith Bogan,
Have a super Sunday.
Doug Hemmenike,
Present.
Chad Holloway,
Good morning.
and Dave Dusenberry.
It's a good day.
Today, is a certain game, because you're technically not supposed to say it. You're not actually, by rule, you're not supposed to say it publicly. If you've noticed, the only people that will actually call it what it is are some sports reporters and the channel hosting it. The rest of the people refer to it as the big game because they have to.
Or
Are we talking about the Super Bowl?
or a fantastic
Thank you,
flying
Chad.
creature, a superb flying creature, if you will.
Yeah, if when you hear like TV commercials and that, it's only because the NFL is paying them to use Super Bowl, or they're paying to use Super Bowl. They have to use the big game legally. They cannot say Super Bowl.
I have never, I've been watching this thing a long time. I have never heard this before.
On Facebook,
That's
there's several
absolutely true.
references to the big game, not the Super Bowl. It is
Yep.
not called the Super Bowl.
That is absolutely
I
true.
want to fact check.
Wow.
But I can't.
Worked for 5 years in radio. Trust me, you have to call it the big game.
Yep, absolutely true.
So are you saying that if you're doing something where you reference it in a moment when you're making money off of your radio show, that you're legally not allowed to use that word?
Absolutely, you have to call it the big game.
Absolutely true.
Well, okay, so the rest of us in the real world don't give a shit about that stuff, and we call it all we want.
World Series, NBA Championship, Stanley Cup, NHL Championship, all fine. Daytona 500, call it whatever you want. Super Bowl, got to call it the big game.
Well, it sucks to work in radio then, because I could care less.
Anyway, there's been a lot of this has been one of the most interesting years for the NFL. There were originally several big stories. One was the obvious one that blew up in the NFL's face of Aaron Rodgers going to New York, which blew up in their face in about 3 plays. And the one that has
4 plays. Yes. You're right.
actually worked out
73 seconds.
quite well for them is the media attention to the relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, which she finally publicly said she loves him this week.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Good. I was on the fence
There's
about that.
been-
Glad that she clarified that.
The old head, some of the so there's been a lot of back and forth about it, but it definitely, despite some of the combative nature of it, it's actually worked out quite well for the NFL. As although it may not have exactly been planned, it definitely has drawn a new audience, or a bigger audience, to the NFL games this season. For me, this is actually the first time that at least 2 of the female in my house will be paying attention. Elise has paid attention, but not quite like she has. That is thanks in part to originally Hard Knocks doing the New York Jets this year, which Elise is a big nut on watching documentaries, and she actually watched that and the midseason one, which was about the Miami Dolphins, which also blew up in the NFL's face. But Hard Knocks this year started with Aaron Rodgers coming to New York, where after all the shenanigans and after all some of the comments that he made, wife kind of went, he seems like a pretty all right guy, and actually started paying attention to the first couple of the games that started the season. And then that Sunday night, first night of the NFL season, everything started to blow up in the NFL's face as Aaron Rodgers was out of the game and out for the season within 4 plays of starting the season. The other one is Delana and Sadie, I believe, paying attention to partly because of Taylor Swift, which has worked out to the tune of about 9 figures of revenue for the NFL. So I've already kind of kicked us off. Who wants to take it from here?
Well, look. Oh, go ahead.
Dave.
Oh, yeah. So, obviously, I'm going to be paying attention to today's game for if you hadn't noticed. The way I look at it is, as a lifelong fan of NFL football, I've been a fan of the NFL and the Niners pretty much since 1979. So, I've always been of the belief that more interest is good, right? We've had cases in the past where there have been negative events that have drawn interest.
We will get to that.
And several cases, be it socially negative or criminally negative, right? I think this is a case where we're actually getting the NFL is growing the audience to potentially, but as of reported, non-football fans are coming in and watching what's going on based on their support and fandom of somebody outside the NFL universe, right?
Mhm.
I am all for it. I am all for it because the way I look at it is, I've loved the game for my entire life. We know that when it comes to Super Bowl Sunday, it's the biggest TV event in the year, and at least a third, maybe as many as half of the people that watch the Super Bowl or the big game at the end or the rather superlative owl, however you want to phrase it, they watch for the commercials. They don't watch for the game. They watch for the commercials. They socialize. They get together with their friends and blah 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 blah. Right? This just allows more people to watch what's going on. Whoa.
Yeah, that's Chad.
Hold on.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Christ.
I was
Yes,
like, I
good
didn't drink that
handle,
much
me.
that I'm seeing double, am I?
How do I get out of this now?
Oh, for God's sake.
There we go. There we go.
And Dave was on such a good roll, and Chad.
I know.
I'm gonna piss all over them.
So, all right. So, in short, because I've already blabbered too long, I believe in the more eyes on the game, the better, right? It's nice to finally have a reason for people to tune in and watch the game and show an interest in a team and a game. Whatever reason it is that you get into it, getting exposed to a bigger audience is good for the NFL. It's shown in the profits, it's shown in the marketing, it's shown, in the NFL as a whole. My hope is that all of that extra money somehow, some way, through collective bargaining and everything like that, ends up more with the players, either through salaries or especially through medical benefits and things like that. That's where I would like to see it go. You support the players that build the product, but that is ultimately up to management and what they do. But I'm all for it. I'm definitely all for
it. You mentioned medical benefits, and this is something that I just wanted to touch on quickly. They announced the class for the Hall of Fame this year. For next year as well. This year. This year. As well, this week. And it's kind of a touchy subject to some NFL fans, especially Bears fans, because one of the names is Steve McMichael, Mongo. It's abundantly clear if you know who he is, if you've paid any attention over the last, I would say, 2 years more or less, as we've watched it happen. There's wonder, a lot of wonder, if Steve is going to make it to the NFL Hall of Fame inductions. He's very, very sick. I mean, there's he was hospitalized. He has LS. He was recently hospitalized again, and seemed like that may have been it. That was about 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Seemed like that it was going to be the end. He kicked out at 2 again. As Steve's been kind of, lingering for a while. But there were also some other interesting decisions on the inductions. One of them being the way the induction was worded, of the first kick returner history listed as a kick returner getting into the Hall of Fame. That's Devin Hester. Listed really as a player, as a wide receiver, getting as a kick returner. Because he definitely isn't getting in on his merits as a wide receiver. Yep. And of course, Dave's buddy, Patrick Willis, getting in.
I have his rookie jersey. I'm not saying, just saying.
Don't you have everybody's rookie jersey?
His 42 jerseys.
I mean, not all of them are successes. I also have a jersey for Jerick McKinnon, and that didn't work out so well. So let's,
Okay, now spinning this back to where we were. That's
even worse.
The positive attention on the NFL. Over the years, there have been a ton of negative stories, obviously. NFL one.
Yep.
From Ruggs, from, as much as I don't even want to mention his name because I don't want to set somebody off, Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson, Belcher from the Kansas City Chiefs. We've heard it all. We have heard every.
Go back to like Ray Caruth. I mean, like there's
Ray Caruth, Ray Lewis.
NFL players have not been there have been some that have been lacked a little bit of character on and off the field. I will say that.
But anyway,
we're just talking about Cowboy players. Come on, let's get real.
That was
at least my player doesn't shoot himself in the leg for no reason whatsoever.
He did shoot himself in the leg for a reason. He was an idiot.
Sometimes that reason is stupid, but there you go.
If we could reel it back into why we're here, by the way. So I'm going to just cut you off. For me, this has been a very interesting evolution. When my kids were young, we always do a Super Bowl party, or we went to my friend Jerome's house for his Super Bowl party.
Yep.
This is something my kids look forward to every year. Getting a bunch of people together. We'd invite some of their friends. We'd invite some of our friends, whatever. And as they started to grow older, they still loved it. It was great, through their grade school and high school days. One of my biggest adjustments when it came to the Super Bowl, I can't wait for you to market this and have to delete that word out there, dude. When it comes to the Super Bowl, is that when they went to college, they wouldn't be home for the game. It was weird. And we talk a little bit by phone, but I'd be at somebody else's party, or I still had my own parties, as Jason, as you know. And we evolved to today. Today is the defining moment in my life, and I'm not thrilled about it. By quirk of fate, Justin, of course, has lived here for a year and a half now, so he was going to be home anyway. Jeremy came home this weekend completely out of plan for the purposes of the audience, because he went to the Billy Joel concert with his mother. Both of the boys went to the Billy Joel concert Friday night with their mother. Great. I'm very happy for them. The chance to see Billy Joel is just fabulous. Obviously, I wasn't invited, and that's okay. I wouldn't have been part of that. But that made an unusual opportunity during college for the boys to be home together on Super Bowl weekend. So 3 weeks ago, I said to Jason, party, let's have a party. The boys are going to be here. And I've had to wrap myself around the realization that that wasn't a good idea, because the boys immediately said no, because they had other plans with their
Yep.
friends.
Well,
What?
I was supposed to have a wrestling tournament anyway. So
Yeah, but I didn't need you, so it's okay. But anyway, so it has been a very weird moment for me to absorb that they wouldn't want to do a party, well, quite frankly, with me. And that sounds very selfish, but it's just Justin's 24, Jeremy's 21, and it's always been that way. Whenever that we were together for the Super Bowl, we did or went to a party together. So I'm drifting a little bit at the moment, trying to adjust to the concept that I'm not part of their plans today. And if I think about it and I don't, attach emotion to it, great. They're continuing to evolve, they're continuing to grow up, and these are the things that happen. They establish their own lives. It still sucks. It still sucks.
It really does. I
Yeah.
understand how you're feeling, and I guess we never had the kind of the tradition of watching the big game or the Super Bowl or whatever you want to call it all the time. But we wouldn't necessarily go to parties. Sometimes we went to parties. Sometimes we just stayed home and watched it. But today, Frank, I'm gonna probably watch it a little bit, kind of have something else going on, and do a little work or something and watch it on the TV tonight. But Frankie said, he went to the what's the big golf, the Waste Management golf tournament yesterday. So he's gonna, I think, take it easy today. He said I probably need to take it easy, and then he's gonna just kind of watch it, out of the corner of his eye tonight, as he's laying on the couch. But we haven't had the same experience with the Super Bowl, but still, we watch it. We're interested in it because it's the culmination of the season, right? I mean, it's an important game, but at the same time, I understand exactly what you're saying, Keith, about how when the kids start becoming more independent and they want to do other things, it's a little, it's a little hard on us, I think. And so, I even think, like, when I was younger and I was like, I was living in Miami, then I was living in Wisconsin, and finally I got back to there where my family was. So we started having, like, on Sundays, it's like a dinner with everybody and trying to kind of maintain some of that. So I had my grandparents and my parents, and we'd get together every Sunday for a dinner. Usually we'd be able to do it. So, just trying to keep some of that. But, now they've got friends who are going to have cool parties, and we're the old men there. And if we walk in, they'll be like, oh, and maybe, thinking about this kind of to the next level, maybe this is part of that, like, the elderly social isolation that people suffer,
Okay, now you're freaking me out. Now you're like, no, okay, I can't go to
Keith was born the old man
I was.
at the party.
I came out with the
Jesus.
walker and the cane and all that shit,
I did hear you came out bald, though.
I did.
So did I.
Yeah, it is a very interesting adjustment. And one of the things I've always loved about this group is the fact that not only are we the male perspective of parenting, which is unusual when it comes to podcasts and such, but we're all each of us represents a different stage of evolution in terms of the ages of our kids. Probably Dave and Doug are the closest, in terms of the kid ages.
Yeah.
Frankie's just spreading his wings. Justin's been out for a while. Jason's got the little ones that are still going to be there for a while. So we have this diversity of where we are. So when I say I'm experiencing this, I look especially at the rest of you, Chad not included. I'm like, I know what's coming, and I can say it all I want, but you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing to get used to, and like I said, most of the time that makes sense. That's exactly what you planned for. That's exactly what you built them for. It's exactly how you raised them.
Yep.
But that that you're still like, but don't do that yet.
Hmm?
Do that yet. Wait another 30 years. How about it?
Yeah.
the social aspect of this particular thing. Yeah, like to your point, it definitely changes, right? So I've always watched fourth game. And in fact, this year I was like, I desperately need to watch this game with people that actually like to watch football, right? I've been to the parties where the majority of the people are there and everybody talks during the game and everybody just shuts up during the commercials, and that, I don't know, drives me a little, it gives me Forrest Whitaker eye. Let's put it that way, right? So and it's funny because this year there's a crew that I normally watch with, that I've watched for the last several years with, that ended up going out. They weren't hosting this year. They were going to somebody else's place, and that place was out. I contacted another friend of mine, and that unfortunately didn't work out either. So I'm actually going to be home. I'm going to be here this year. And I'm like, well, I still need to watch with somebody that actually cares about football. My wife is not a football fan. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? So, I'm like, well, let me see if I can work this out. So I invited my brother John over, who's a football fan as well. His soon-to-be wife is coming, who could care less. So
Good.
she and my wife can talk to each other. They can keep themselves company. I can watch with somebody who cares. And this year, for the first time and forever, I'm actually going to have one of my kids here that actually wants to watch the game. It's weird. My youngest has taken an interest in actually kind of following the game a little bit this year. And I find it interesting because all three of my kids, they have their quote unquote rooting interests, when they were kids, largely as a function of us pushing team allegiances onto them, because that's what good parents do. And but this year, my youngest he's actually paid attention to some of the games and is actually watching it a little bit. And it's interesting because he's like he's my brainiac kid, right? He likes to, he does robotics. He does, he's in all AP classes. He's taking calculus as a sophomore, right? He's my brainiac kid. But the one thing that he's taken an interest to over the last year or so, or a couple of years actually, is chess. He likes playing chess. He plays chess with all of his friends. He really enjoys that element. And I think he sees some of that in the strategy of watching the game. He can now visualize. He uses chess as his baseline when he's watching some of these plays develop on how certain players check others, how certain matchups check others to allow certain things to open and things like that. And I love that I got into it obviously for the physical aspect, the hard hits, the big plays, the wow factor of the NFL game. He's appreciating it from more of the strategy standpoint. And I think that's really, really, really cool. So I'm actually looking forward this year to watching with my youngest son, who also happens to like San Francisco for some reason. And enjoying the game from the strategy perspective, like really kind of like talking some nuts and bolts, like looking at lineups and formations and seeing how things work. And as a parent, I love that. I'm really looking forward to watching this
year. There's a game you might want to check out, Dave. It's a board game. It's called NFL Strategy. I don't know if they still make it. Okay. Made it a while ago, but there's an NFL strategy game you might want to look into.
Okay.
For you and him.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
By the way, you just described Jeremy. Robotics, chess, all that stuff. We should hook the two of them up.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And as you say, Jeremy, Justin was always a sports head. He's crazy. He loves this stuff. He followed my lead with the New York sports and all that stuff. Right. We root for almost precisely the same group, same teams. Jeremy was never much of a sports guy himself until he got to college. And then he discovered college football because he's in the marching band. So now he knows everything there is to know about college football. And he's rapidly learning about college basketball too. And I think that's part of what I'm wrestling with is that, okay, he's finally a big sports head. Instead of going to the parties and being bored and looking at his phone and, maybe nibbling on some of the trays of food, he might actually pay attention and watch it with me and get into it. And he's going to a friend's house.
Him and I may need to sit down in about the month and 2 weeks to talk.
He'll still be in Ohio at that time, but okay.
And the NCAA brackets.
I'm sure he gave you quite some insight, and so could Justin, of course. I mean, the two of them.
I've had a couple of rough years, a couple of real rough years. Anyway, but yeah, that's like I said. I mean, yeah, definitely check in. Both of you probably could check into that in that game. Like I said, I don't know if they made it anymore. It's probably vintage right now and probably like $200 to get. But anyway,
But
there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, but it's for years when I had parties, right? I'd have a bunch of friends. I've done, having a bunch of friends over, everybody's watching, things like that. The kids have always kind of like hung out by themselves, and like whether we were at grandparents' house, they would huddle and they would just like play and like be out of sight. My daughter, for a brief time, watched a little bit, and then probably immediately fell off the wagon. She rooted for her team of choice. We'll call them Green Bay because that's their name. She rooted for her team of choice largely at the influence of her grandmother or mama, who is a rabid fan of said team. And it's just it's different now because it's that my kids are all they're either teenagers or in their early 20s, and kind of coming back around to sitting down and watching the game. I've talked a lot about on this thing about how I appreciate how my relationship with my kids has changed as they've gotten older. I actually really look forward to them getting older and getting to that point where we can have like an adult relationship between us. I think that's really cool. I think I relate well with my kids. I'm really looking forward to that. And it's like now in this case with my youngest son, getting to that point where now we can kind of sit and watch the games together. Well, we'll see how it goes, but where we can like watch the game together and appreciate it for what it is, something completely new. And it's like a next stage in the evolution of my relationship with my kids, and whether it's watching sports, or I know Doug, you have a really good thing with your kids about music and going to concerts and getting into that entertainment and talking about like buying records and things like that. Like being able to have that shared passionate mutual interest with your kids when they kind of get into it, and you can kind of geek out a little bit with them, like once they get to the point where they can do that. I don't know. I think that's really cool. I consider myself blessed to be able to have that, at least with one of my kids. I share interests with my other ones on different grounds. Like my older son is a total ridiculous music head, right? He's my music critic. He listens to everything. He was giving me an introduction to like best albums from like from the past year, and like giving me some insights and things. We were watching like stupid stuff. Like I showed him the Guar Tiny Desk concert on NPR, and he was telling me about like, listen, Dad, you need to go check out Silk Tonic, the Bruno Mars and what's his name, Anderson .Paak.
Anderson .Paak.
Oh God, I watched his Tiny Desk concert yesterday, and it was really good. Oh damn it, I froze. But yeah, like whatever that mutual interest is, it's cool when you can get to the point where your kids can get into it with you too, and you can kind of go on that tangent. Like that's where I am right now with my youngest in this game. I love it. And to your point, Jason, what you were saying with this whole Taylor Swift influence, that's bringing a whole new batch of people in to potentially have that link to watching this game and bringing people together, right? Her fan base is gigantic. And that's why I like what I see, and I'm totally supportive of what's going on. Look, the NFL will use whatever marketing niche they can to expand their audience. That's what they do, their business. But I love it. I mean, if you can bring people into this, this world and getting people together I mean, you wouldn't normally picture Taylor Swift fans and NFL football fans as if you look at them in a Venn diagram, there was no overlap really, right? But this is allowing those two rather substantial circles to interact a little bit, and I think that's cool.
The positive of that is bringing hundreds of millions of new eyes to the game,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and diversifying people's interests for whatever reason.
Yep.
It's great. I think the negative, if you think before Taylor and her boyfriend Travis, before all that, Hollywood has been matching up their own stars to generate interest. There've been a lot of
Sure.
created relationships.
Yep.
So that you could drum up marketing, and then they'd last for a couple of years. You'd probably never see them together, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, they're not together anymore, and it was all BS because it was all just done for marketing. My only concern with it does look like a very legitimate connection. There's no question about it between these two.
Mhm.
But
Well, I
how
mean,
quickly is it going to be for the rest of Hollywood to say, well, why don't we do pairings like this all the time? Because
Mhm.
look at the money that's being dragged in. I worry about what comes next.
That's fair.
It's a good point.
I think with that too, you also have to worry about the size of the superstar. Obviously, I've heard on the news like Taylor changes economies in the cities where she has concerts.
Yep.
Like she brings in so much money, but I'm not sure that I know somebody at that level that would that has that economic impact on people. And certainly there can be people that would bump it up or might increase the interest. But I think she's an interesting case. I think with
Yeah.
him. And
Yeah.
does anybody know how they met? Like it seems weird, like a football player with a singer.
Well,
I
the
mean,
story is a lot of fun, and it was literally Travis being a Swiftie, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yes.
he was basically he sent her some sort of messenger type of thing that she didn't respond to, and then he said something about it, I think, in his podcast that
Mhm.
he reached out to her and didn't hear back from her, and that got back to her and
Wow.
her to respond. It's a cute story. Who knows if it's actually real, but whatever.
I think
Yeah.
there's more to it than that. I think they had met
Yeah.
before that, and that was kind of just a play on it. But there was Alan Hunter on 80s on 8 has multiple times over the last few weeks brought up Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've talked about that. Like I said, he's talked about that at length several times of the comparison between the two. I
Good
mean,
comparison.
Marilyn was the biggest star in the world, really. I mean,
Yep.
Joe DiMaggio was, an iconic baseball player, but in the public eye, I mean, people knew him, but he was not the level that Marilyn Monroe was. And obviously, we know Travis Kelce is a blip on the radar compared to Taylor Swift.
Yes.
I think he knows that too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, sure he does.
And a couple of years will just be a sad breakup song for Taylor Swift.
It's not just material for her next album.
Could you imagine the life he lives, thinking that in 6 months or a year or even 5 years, he could be the subject of that next song?
I don't think he cares.
Yeah.
I
really don't.
will say that in this house, we never talk about Taylor Swift, and there's nothing against her, but we stick to sports. We don't care about that stuff. That's all their life. Who cares? That conversation does not come up here.
His brother would probably get more of a kick out of it than he would.
Yeah, well, I did see a little story on him. It seems like Travis was kind of jacking around in college and had some real problems he fell upon. Like I think he failed the drug test or something.
He
and
was
the coach-
kicked off the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
no
Cincinnati.
more
Yeah.
football. And his brother kind of backed him up and got him back on the straight and narrow and talked to the coach and did some of that. So
Jason Kelce is look, I have my opinions about the team that he plays for, but as a person, he's everything that I've read about Jason Kelce. I mean, he's a professional, obviously, on the field. He's a pretty damn good human off the field.
Mhm.
Nothing but respect for that guy. And
Was it-
Go
Was
ahead.
it Brian Kelly at the time?
What, the Notre Dame coach back then?
No. He was coach of Cincinnati before that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't
He
remember.
came from the Bearcats. It might have
Yeah.
been. I don't know. It might have been Kelly, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure. But I think it might have been Brian Kelly who was the coach, or the guy
Yeah.
only right after him. But Brian Kelly, yeah, is a name that I think might be involved in that. But yeah, Jason. Ever since the the parade when the Eagles won the
Him in
Super
a full
Bowl.
numbers outfit. One of the best
Oh
speeches
my
ever.
God. I might actually put that video up later.
Yeah.
That was pretty much a lot of people's first sighting of Kelsey, so to speak. I'm actually surprised that Anheuser-Busch hasn't latched on to him yet and turned him into a giant marketing campaign, because apparently all the guy drinks is Bud Light when it comes to when he drinks. That's all he
Yep.
drinks. He drinks Bud Light.
You mean he doesn't shoot the cans?
No, he railed against that. He really came out and made a statement about it.
So, yeah, well, they may have reached out, but he might have just said, screw you, I have enough money.
You never have enough money, especially when you're Jason Kelsey. He'll do everything he wants to do. I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened yet. It might. Especially when they started using Zach Brown's chicken fried for the commercials. I'm surprised it was a commercial with the two of them at one point.
Well, I mean, you see what the Manning brothers have put together. I'm sure, I mean, we're already seeing Travis all over the place. I'm sure we're going to see both of them constantly. And that still will not be a subject for my sons, because they won't give a damn. The only thing they care about in commercials is that there are simply too many of them. They don't care about the subject of them.
Well, they might about one of them tonight.
Well,
The first promos for Deadpool 3 is supposed to be out tonight.
unfortunately, I won't be able to see the reactions to it. So thanks for reminding me.
You know.
Okay.
There's a couple of them that are interested, that have interest in me, that already have me kind of like, oh my God, that's going to be hysterical when it's revealed what it's for. There's one I saw with Jeff Goldblum that they're kind of implying that that looks like a kind of Independence Day movie type thing, and it's going to be a commercial for apartments.com or something like that, apparently. So there should be some interesting ones tonight.
I don't know. I'm going to go over to a friend's house here in East Windsor to keep it close to home, and yeah, I'll root. I'll do a little rooting for the 49ers, because I know some guy who actually likes that team.
It's good for your health. It prolongs life. There's a lot of substantial health benefits to aligning with the with San Francisco in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying, but that has been my personal experience.
So
sorry, it's not going to happen.
I'm going to ask a strictly football question that has nothing to do with our kids.
Okay.
But would it be appropriate? Sorry to say this, Dave. Would it be appropriate to start talking about Patrick Mahomes in the same breath with Tom Brady if Kansas City wins?
I don't know if it would be appropriate to speak with him in the same breath as Tom Brady, because that's 6 Super Bowls and six wins in 8 trips and 20 years worth of playing time. He's 28.
That would be three wins in 4 trips, I think.
And that's fine. When if he's able to get there and win Super Bowls after the age of 30, that's when you start talking about comparisons to Tom Brady, right?
I have to ask my kids the same question, particularly.
That's it's like when people talk about other players. Obviously the Niners, the best example I can think of is the greatest of all time, Jerry Rice, right? People talk about when players come like, oh, can you compare him to Jerry? Can you compare him to Jerry? Look at he does after the age of 30.
That's
Because
a good point.
what that guy did between the ages of 30 and 44 is unprecedented in history. And the same thing with Tom Brady. That's like, look, when you're in your 20s, everybody can, has the potential to really freaking kick ass. But when you get to that point, you're still able to play at that high level after the age of 30. That's when I start paying attention.
Let's be fair. Jerry Rice could still play.
He's ridiculous. I love that guy.
Well, it's going to depend on the pieces they put around them. If they keep pieces like Kadarius Toney around them, no. If they can keep pieces like Travis Kelce and some of the other receivers that he has around them, yeah, there's a chance. But you keep a guy like Toney, forget it.
Yeah,
I mean, but I'll bring up one name that if Kansas City can maintain an eye on and he can keep playing at the level that he's playing, it's going to be Kansas City's not going anywhere for a while. Is Isaiah Pacheco?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Who just happens to come from a very fine football school.
Sorry, Dave, there's absolutely no way in hell. No way in hell. I'm rooting for the Niners in the Super Bowl. Sorry.
that's fair.
I've told the story about the psycho abusive ex-girlfriend. She was a Niners fan, so fuck you.
No, that's again, as I spoke about, Jason Kelce earlier. Like I said, I have opinions about the team that he plays for. He as a person is pretty awesome. So I understand of what you speak.
Especially when I used to do the drum corps stuff, I used to be surrounded by Eagles fans, and it was a very vociferous conversation.
But I am going to say this. You keep making it to Super Bowls and not winning them. Those pieces of CDC and Debo being around all the time, they're not going to be there forever.
Nope, I know. Fully aware.
The book is going to close eventually.
The Niners are now 5-2 in Super Bowls. It's not bad. But they need to, the way I look at it this year, if I can get on a brief San Francisco tangent, is that this is every step of the way this year, my team has sought to correct prior things that have gone wrong. Teams were 0-30 when they were down by 7 or more points in the fourth quarter. Teams are now 1-30 in that position thanks to the Niners win over Green Bay. They were down 17 points at the half against Detroit, came back and win that game. Everybody remembers Kyle Shanahan being the offensive coordinator for 28-3. 28-3 when he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons against the Patriots, right? They collapsed that game. Mm-hmm. Shanahan has some stuff that he's trying to work on and work through. I think that team is very motivated. I think there's been a lot of comparisons between this team and the 1998 Denver Broncos, mm-hmm. because you have Anthony Lynn, who was the running back on the 98 Broncos, is the assistant head coach, running backs coach for San Francisco. You have Brian Griese, who was a quarterback on that 98 team, quarterbacks coach for San Francisco. You have Ed McCaffrey, he of the minuscule shoulder pads, who was a wide receiver on that 98 Denver Broncos team. Obviously, his son Christian is playing for San Francisco. You had Mike Shanahan, who was the coach of the Denver Broncos in 98. His son Kyle is now the coach of the Niners, right? So there's a lot of people have been drawing a lot of parallels to that. I think you're going to see the two biggest players I think that are going to be highly motivated in this game are McCaffrey and, hands down, Trent Williams. He is 35 years old, and this is his first Super Bowl. That dude, I don't even want to think about what the defensive linemen are going to think when you're playing against a highly motivated Trent Williams. That guy runs over anybody anyway. I see that's the guy I'm going to be watching today. I'm going to be watching those two guys because I think and we know the story about Kittle saying in 2019, he's like, I will be back here, when they lost to Kansas City the first time. So I think you got a lot of motivation. and the fact that they're playing Kansas City as a revenge game from 2019, you still have some hardcore core players on that Niners team that are still there. I expect them to play. I mean, I'm not one that guarantees wins. I expect that game to be very, very, very competitive.
Oh, it should be. It definitely should be. I can't see it not being competitive. I'm actually wondering. No. And I'm saying this honestly. I don't know. I don't know if Mahomes and Kelsey. I don't think they'll be able to hang with San Francisco for 4 quarters. I mean, they probably will. They've hung with everybody else and beaten almost everybody else. So it's possible, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been the type that you see how things shake out when they play the game. Like I've seen weirder things happen in matchups where the team that was clearly favored over the other one, 18-1. Best example I can think of. Giants fans know 18 wins, 1 giant loss. Right?
Yep.
Came in as a wild card team and ended up beating the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. It happens. Matchups can happen. That's why I'm not one to like predict scores and things like that. I want to see a good game. I think they have the tools to win it. I think they have the motivation to win it. I think in this game, San Francisco has more to play for than Kansas City. Kansas City's won a couple of championships. I think San Francisco has more to play for. I think they're going to do well.
Well, I do have to say one thing with the reason that the large female contingency has tuned into the NFL this year. Anyone else catch the irony that her ex-boyfriend's hanging out in Las Vegas planning his next move with his side piece, so to speak?
I'm sorry, but who's her ex-boyfriend? I have no idea.
John Mayer planning his next move with Dead & Company. They're playing the Sphere in Las Vegas starting in a couple of weeks.
Nah, I missed that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they were a thing, so.
It was announced. What do you mean you didn't know? Oh, him and Taylor. Yeah. The song Dear John and like half of one of her albums is about him. But yeah, he's out in Vegas planning a residency. They're going to be playing they're the next residents of the Sphere in what the MSG Sphere out there that U2 is currently occupying. Dead & Co, who was supposed to retire last year, that said they weren't touring anymore. Yeah, they're doing a residency in Vegas.
And meanwhile, I'm just taking heart at what Dave said earlier, that one of his kids is sitting with him for this game, because I think part of that is because it's such an important game to Dave.
Yeah.
And I know that although my kids have totally abandoned me for this particular year, it's because
oh my God, shut up. Quit your bitching.
Stop your whining, bitch. We don't care about this game.
You're the one whining about your kids, but I'm bitching.
The next time the Giants are in the Super Bowl, 2049, that my boys will be right next to me when it happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
Jason, unlike you, I actually remember that this is a podcast about parenting kids. So
2040 to 2049. Yeah.
I'm trying to keep us on topic here.
You ain't gonna have the players by then. You guys will be playing in Minnesota by then, most likely.
But yeah, to your point, Keith, like, this is going to be a first for me because I've watched this game with friends. I've watched this game with family. I've watched this game with complete strangers. I've watched this game in big crowds. I've watched this game in small crowds. This is the first time I'm really watching this game with one of my kids. So it's just a different dynamic. And I think it'll be cool.
He changed all their names. What the hell did he change everybody's name to except for Doug? He's the only one who did.
I haven't gotten to Doug yet. No, Chad started it. Chad started it by doing his own name change.
Super Bowl, Chad.
I should trademark it.
We we'll be doing just the opposite. The real reason why people watch sports, to eat. So
Yeah.
my kids know that the Super Bowl, that it's the day that they don't have to sit at the table and eat dinner, and we allow snacks in the dining room, and we'll eat only snacks all day long. So
Yeah,
uh,
unfortunately, I asked Elise something last night, and she realized that she missed an appointment, so they ran out the door, her and Sadie, um, or was missing an appointment. I think we're gonna go to Duck Donuts at some point today first, um, and then I've got a couple of things planned, but nothing serious. We did. I'm trying to think when we did. When the hell did we do the Super Bowl party at your house? What was it? 19, Keith?
Something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was pre-pandemic.
Oh yeah, it was before the pandemic. But it could have been 20. I don't remember. I think it was not. It
Yeah.
was either 19 or 20.
Right.
I think it was 19. Um, that was the Rams and who? I'm trying to think. Rams in New England, I think, because that was the worst Super Bowl in history.
Yeah, you see,
Most boring Super
New
Bowl in
York's not
NFL
involved, I
history.
don't really remember shit, you know?
What's that?
If New York's not involved, I don't really remember much. So I definitely think of my own evolution, 86 and 91 when the Giants were in the Super Bowl and I was watching with my brothers and you know, not you know, I wasn't like a single digit or teenager, but I was much younger. And then 07 and 11 watching, you know, Giants in the Super Bowl and but then the boys are right next to me. Um, yeah, it's the only time I know they'll be next to me for going forward. Which we'll make sure of that. I think they would be next to me if the Jets ever made it, but that'll never happen, so I'm not really worried about it.
I remember my first Super Bowl was I can't remember what number it was, but it was like Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like cleaning it up. I can't remember who they played, but we had a
That'd
big
be
group of us at
72,
school. I think
3
we're
and 4. They won 3 in a row, 72, 3 and 4. So that's
okay.
That's what you
But
remember.
I think
First,
this was later when they were in that too, because I think it was in the either late 70s or early 90s. Because I had friends at school, and I was kind of conscious of the world at that time. I would have been in 74. I would have been 7. But I would have been,
Am I remembering the right years, guys? 72, 3, 4, or is it later?
I think it's later. It's later because they won the 1980 Super Bowl,
Yeah, but I don't think that was part of the 3-pack.
79 season.
I don't think that was part of the 3 in a row that they did.
it wasn't a 3 in a row.
I thought it was.
Steelers?
No.
No team has ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row.
The Niners came close, but thanks to the Giants, did not do it.
2 break year and then 1 was Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Or the other way around. No, it was 2 break year and 1. The first Super Bowl memory for sure that I can think of. I mean, I vaguely remember 84, but I don't know. 85 was the Bears Super Bowl shuffle.
Yep.
I
mean,
remember
they had
that
the
one
big
very well.
marketing campaign around the Bears, and they played New England, and it was as everybody predicted.
Oh,
The Bears blew them out.
that was not competitive.
It was like 55 to 10, if I remember correctly.
If I remember correctly, William the Refrigerator Perry actually scored a touchdown
And Walter Payton did
on
not.
the offensive side of the ball.
Yes,
Peyton
yes.
didn't, right? I also remember what's his name constantly being shown wearing sunglasses, which now it took
Jim
me a
McMahon.
while to find out the real reason why. Jim McMahon. It
Right,
was not to look cool. He had
That's
a
right.
serious eye problem. He had stabbed himself in the eye with a fork when he was a kid.
Yep.
And had vision problems in his eye, so they were prescription and they were sunglasses. But that was the way he could see. Yeah, there were some interesting ones. Then a couple of years later, the Montana and those Niners teams. My dad was at the '91 Super Bowl. He was right behind the goalpost.
That's cool.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's a bucket list thing because I've never been to a Super Bowl, but I understand from people who have been in recent years that it actually sucks. There's
Yeah.
so many commercial breaks that it's just boring as hell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things. Yeah, it's almost like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Yeah, I might do it once, but I'm
Nope.
almost not drawn to it at all.
Honestly, of the games, I think I'd rather go see a home NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Like,
I've been
I think that would be cool.
But it's not
I've
neutral
been-
site.
I've been to New York on New Year's, but I'm never going to Times Square. There's no reason to go to Times Square.
As
Been to New York
as you get older, I'm not sure my bladder could handle it anyway. So it's okay.
This is true.
Well, and, talking about the Bears and how this relates like to Taylor. If you think about Jim McMahon, Taylor obviously has her own fan base, but then you have somebody like Jim McMahon, who I think he was a decent player, but then I think he really got, just through his antics, had a real following from some of the things he did, and that kind of blew up. And do we still have players like that now? Like I mean, and I don't watch sports that much, but I don't know who it would be. I mean, I think we've got some good players out there, but do we have the personalities?
Most of them are wide receivers, believe it or not. It's shifted to a lot of them are wide receivers. You have for a while Randy Moss was like that. Trying to think, Chad
Ochocinco.
who was like that. It's tough to say. There's players that are, but then there's players that are higher level and aren't like that.
OBJ was like that.
Who?
Well, and nowadays, who remembers OBJ anymore?
Oh,
Yep.
Plaxico
Odell
Burris was
Beckham
like
Jr.
that until he shot himself.
Tyreek Hill is probably as close as you're going to get now. Who was the guy who he was with Dallas most recently, like 3 years ago, and he tore his uniform off and left in the middle of a game?
Antonio Brown. You're
Yeah.
talking.
No, he wasn't with Dallas. He was never with Dallas.
He was with Tampa.
Tampa.
Yeah. Antonio Brown. That guy is.
Talk about shooting your career in the foot.
Oh, Terrell Owens. That's another one. Terrell Owens was probably the biggest shining example of his personality. Kind of brought him the. Then you have the guy like Chris Carter, who's the exact opposite of. You'd never heard a peep out of Chris Carter, but when it came to play level, forget it. The guy was one of the best players, probably the best wide receiver in the league at one point. Quietly, one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Best example of that, hands down, in NFL league history is Barry Sanders. Professional, went on the field, completely juked everybody else out of their shoes. Was one of the best players ever of all time. Very humble. He'd score a touchdown, give the ball back to the ref. Let's play the next play. Like, absolute professional in everything he did.
Walter Payton was like that too. And when I talk to my kids about the greats of the game, I always point to the Walter Paytons, the Barry Sanders. Absolutely. A guy when I was younger, this predates Jason. Guys like Roger Staubach and Bob Greasy. They were true leaders. They didn't make any headlines, but they were the great quarterbacks of when I was a kid.
I have great. I remember watching video of Roger. I have great consternation about Roger Staubach because had he not been in the Navy, Roger Staubach is is probably top 5 of stat wise and all quarterbacks of all time.
You are
if it's not missing 4 years of his prime.
Yep,
you're probably right.
And he still had a hell of a career when he starts at 27 years old.
Jason, you'll be happy to know that although I've never been a Cowboys fan, I grew up a Roger Staubach fan. He was truly, he was probably better than Greasy, even though Greasy, did what he did. But just a phenomenal quarterback. Wrong team, but phenomenal quarterback.
Oh, you were saying 3 in a row, 72. No, 72 was the undefeated year of the Dolphins. It was definitely later than that.
There you go. That's right. My kids would tell me that. That's true. Well, Justin would. I don't think Jeremy thinks about stuff like that, but
That was back-to-back Super Bowl, 72 and 73. But
But we've spun out of control here. So I think it's been a
Yeah.
good episode. Yeah. Chad's like, I'm done.
Well,
um
I'll say, listen, guys, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing for today, especially the dads out there, take the time and enjoy today with your family, whether if you're going to spend it with your dad or if you have your kids coming over to spend it with you, if you can. You know, enjoy what we have, parents or, especially those of us in the male perspective, we tend to bond over sports, in some way, shape, or form or capacity. And I think, today is just a good day to kind of revel in that if you can, especially for dads out there, go out, throw football around a little bit.
Yeah,
Hey, today
don't
if you
forget.
can, if you have younger ones or if you have, older ones, get inside, make some good food, and freaking hang out and have a good time.
yeah, it's gonna be a
Well,
little better
occurred to
weather-wise
me-
today too.
It
Yeah.
occurred
It has
to me, I don't think there's a football in the house. I don't think we have one.
Interesting.
I know.
Well, you're gonna be playing with yourself anyway, so I mean,
It's not something
Whoa,
I need
hey,
to know.
hey,
Hey,
So much for the G rating of this show. That's
no.
for sure.
Wow.
Keith,
Wow,
Keith's gonna be
Jason, just go for the throat.
he's gonna be peeling potatoes. Let's get that correct, okay? He's gonna be peeling potatoes.
And don't forget to remind your kids, get your mother a Valentine's Day card.
Oh yeah. Yes,
I just
indeed.
gave mine a little box of chocolates from Amazon.
Hey, Doug, my sons are both legal adults. They can do as they choose.
Yeah, as you was saying, I already prepped 15 pounds of potatoes. I made a stromboli with ham, cheese, salami, and super salt provolone, and put away all the dishes. So
I'm surprised that Doug doesn't host a Super Bowl party with like 100 people.
Oh my God. Cool.
so I think that's pretty much a good place to leave us. We got some topics we're working on. We got to get together in the coming weeks. There's some stories that I want to get to about some friends and stuff they've been through as dads. We'll get to that at another date and time.
And of
So
course, Doug brought up a good topic too. So we have to chew over Doug's topic too. We'll get to that in the next couple of weeks.
from all of us here at Dads on Life, take care, everybody. Keith, eat my shorts and fuck the Niners.
Have a good one, everybody.
That was
Later,
Super Day,
guys.
everybody.
Enjoy.